What if you're actually interceding for it to come and to hit the congregational church or the E-free church that would not be likely to have this, that are cessationist in their theology? What if what you're praying for? And I came to a point where I was like, Lord, if I'm praying selfishly here, just let me change it. Just come anywhere. Just come. I don't care. And there came a point of that shift in my heart to where that I was like, well, I don't care if it happens here in this building. I just want it to happen in the city. I just want it to happen. At that time I was living in the Chicagoland, in the somewhere in the Chicago area, because we were so desperately needed it, And I think that is, again, sort of the theme of what is happening with all of us in the body of Christ now is, let's not just be so myopic to where that we're pulling it for ourselves, but really saying, Lord, as long as that impact happens, I don't care where it is, I'm just going to intercede and cry out for it, that it just happened no matter what.
Right. So do you feel like that, like even with what we saw at Asbury, to me, I always looked at it, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I always looked at it as God it was like, it wasn't the thing, because the thing isn't one specific location, right? But it was like whetting the appetite for some. It was almost like a affirmation of the prayers that have gone forward by other people, and that God is like, I am doing this. Keep interceding, keep praying, keep pursuing this. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on, do you really feel like it was, because I look at, like, there were some people that when they shut it down or closed it off to the outside, whatever, I didn't, there were some people who were upset, but I was like, it's never about one specific location. So for me, I wasn't upset. I was like, it is a school, and like these people paid to be there. And, not that I'm like, oh, we got to like suppress the spirit. That's not, we shouldn't do that. But, anyways, yeah, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
I'm sure there were parents that were calling going, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm paying for you to educate my kid. And here they are in this chapel the whole time.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, I'm sure they were dealing with the pressure of that. We have, we think, well, when something like this happens, that everybody's on board, even if they're a Christian. No, they're not, and if they're struggling with the religious spirit, they're especially not. This is the antithesis of what they're wanting, and we have to remember a religious spirit is a demon, and it's working for the devil, not for God, but, and so there is this, I think there's this thing of, of where that the control's coming in, because they're panicking, they're like, man, we don't have the staff to deal with the traffic. We don't have, the ropes for people to follow through to come into, like, all of that, is time consuming and a big pressure on them. And so, I'm very sympathetic in that sense, from seeing it through that view. I was just in Toronto, and I was interviewing in one of our Radical Radio podcasts, Steve Long, who's the pastor there now. That was, John Arnott's sort of the apostolic father of the house, and Duncan and Kate Smith, that now too, but he was sort of reflecting on everything, sort of like, what did we do wrong? What did we do right? And when that revival broke out, which to me is the most impactful revival that we've had in my lifetime, was Toronto. It impacted millions all over the world. Wow. From my lifetime, I see it as the big, and I'm a little biased. It impacted me.
Yeah.
It set me on a power evangelism course that I wouldn't have had. And so, subsequently, out of that, Brownsville, just I think 9 months after Toronto started, all of a sudden sparked, two, and it was just this launch of so many things. And so I think that, when these people are in these situations, it's hard to navigate. I had a pastor of a very large church that I went to go speak at in Boise, Idaho. He looked at me, and I said this on the podcast with Steve. He looked at me and he goes, listen, and this was a Vineyard church. He said, look, he goes, bring everything you have. Like everything you carry, I want you to bring it. He goes, we just don't want Toronto. And I was like, who wouldn't want Toronto? I want Toronto.
What's wrong with you? Yeah.
Like, why would you want Toronto?
Uh-huh.
And I said, why? What do you mean? What do you not want? He goes, I just don't want to try to figure out who's going to lock up the building at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to try to figure out how they're going to clean the building before the next meeting the next night. He goes, that, and I was like, oh, so you don't want the revival. You want the moving of the Spirit in these meetings, but you don't want the revival. Oh no, I want revival in the city. I just don't want, and people don't realize that when those things happen, there's a mess. There's a part of that. And I love what Jack Hayford said. He had a very powerful prophetic word that he gave the Vineyard when I was a Vineyard pastor. And he warned the Vineyard. He goes, you're in danger of losing the very thing that birthed this movement. And he says, and you'll get to the place to where you get a little embarrassed about how messy he can get, but God will never allow it to be clean and neat. Because if it's clean and neat, then you're in control.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's messy and then it's clear that he's in control. And, we refer to that as the chaos of God, that it's the chaos of God. And man, how right he was in saying that. He was warning and saying, you're in danger of walking away and abandoning the very thing that launched you, the very thing that released you, because all of a sudden you get tired of the mess. You get frustrated with the chaos. You get tired of and that can happen. It can happen through, bringing on a messy guest on your program.
Sure.
It doesn't just have to be in a church, in a building. It could be where you're having to clean something up or having to explain something. And not saying that what they're doing is necessarily right, but at the same time, if it's too pristine, then, is it really in that framework of God? Because it wasn't in that place of being just neat and tidy and having a perfect little bow on it.
Yeah, we certainly love that in the Western Church. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the cross was a crime scene.
Yeah.
It was a crime scene. I mean, this was a pretty, it was bloody. It was a big mess. It was horrific. It was a nightmare, but that was God.
Yeah.
The cross of Christ here on earth, that bloody, shredded body hanging on that cross was our King sitting on his throne on this earth. It doesn't make sense, but that's God. And God will not make sense. He will not fit in your box, and you can't make him.